Hi, I'm James from Barista GO, and I'm going to take you through what you can expect in your box when you open up your Profitec GO for the first time. So of course, you're going to have the machine itself, you'll have a cleaning brush, you're going to have the tamper, a blank, which is basically the one that doesn't have any perforation holes in it. You'll then have a small basket, which will be for, say, typically a single espresso. Then you're going to have a larger basket, which would be for a bigger espresso recipe or a double espresso. And then of course the portafilter itself. In addition to that, you're going to have the drip tray that needs to be placed within the machine. So all you're going to do is, if you look on the tray, you've got arrows pointing in the direction that it inserts into the machine itself. So we take it, push it up at an angle, press down and push straight in. The demo machine that I've got here today is already up and running, but I'm just going to take you through how you would do it for the first time when you pulled it out the box. So the first thing to remember is, don't plug the machine in initially. What we're going to do is fill up the water tank, and that's the first step of the process. It's really important that when you're filling up the water tank, you are using filtered water. Our recommendation, if it's at home, is that you could use a really good quality water filter jug. Just remember to change those cartridges, because if you put in water that's unfiltered into the machine and it calcifies, it's going to shorten the lifespan of the product. So it's really, really important to remember to use the correct water and always ensure that you're using water filters. So when you're setting up for the first time, when you're putting the water in, the machine won't be turned on. So the first thing you do is remove the lid from the water tank. You can actually remove the water tank in its entirety if you wanted to fill up with a tap where it's coming out filtered already, or if you're pouring from a filter jug, you would just pour directly into the reservoir. Just important never to go above a max fill line there as well. So once you've done that, all you need to do, lid back on the top. The next step now is to turn on the machine. As you can see, it was on. All you're going to do in this case is you'll be turning on the machine, and we're going to take a milk jug and you're going to place it under the area where the water comes out of the machine. When you've turned it on for the first time, you'll see that down here at the moment it's showing the temperature of the water, but of course when it's come out the box, the water is going to be cold and you won't see 93 down here. What you will see is FIL, which means fill, and that's telling you that the water needs to be pushed through the machine, so we want to fill up the boiler of the machine. So the first thing that we do is take whatever you're using. We would suggest using something like a milk pitcher, put it under the section where the water is going to come out, and now all you're going to do is hit the coffee on. You'll hit the coffee on and you want to leave that to run through until it starts coming out of the machine. Our recommendation is you do it anywhere between 30 and 45 seconds, but it's really, really important to remember that it's got to be coming through and out into the jug. If it hasn't started doing that, you need to keep it running longer while it's got that FIL on the display. After your 30 to 45 seconds and water is coming out, all you're now going to do is turn the off button on the coffee section. Just for your reference, the coffee button is the one at the top where you can see the cup and the steam coming out of it. Once you've completed the fill process, now you've got to allow the machine to heat up. Typically, depending on the ambient temperature around you, you're going to be looking at circa 4 to 5 minutes. So at this stage, the machine will still be on, don't turn it off. Your button for the coffee and steam will be out, you don't want either of them on, and the machine will start to warm up. Previously on the digital display you had FIL for fill, saying it was filling up the boiler. At this stage you should now see UP, so up, and that's telling you that the machine is heating up and it's going to bring itself up to temperature. When it reaches the optimum temperature which you've set, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on, you will see the temperature on the dial. So if we move out, this machine's been set to bring it up to 93 degrees. As you can see now on the digital display, it's now at 93 degrees. That tells us that if we wanted to pull a shot of espresso, we're ready to go. Now you've got your machine up to temperature, the next thing you want to test the first time you're using it is what the pressure is. So this gauge that you can see here, this is going to tell you the pressure of the machine. And typically you want to be looking at anywhere between 8.5 and say 12. We would probably recommend 9 bar. That's what most people would go for on a home machine. But of course you do have the ability to change that as you get further down the line with your brewing technique. So out of the box we would generally suggest that you do it on 9. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your blank filter. And remember, that's the one that doesn't have any of the perforation holes, so it's a solid structure there. We're going to take your portafilter and we're going to put our blank, give it a good push and put it into your portafilter. The next step, into the machine, and we're going to turn on the coffee button. This is important because we're going to now see when we turn this on where the dial goes to on the pressure gauge. So we're going to turn that on, And we can see it's dropped and it's building and building and building. We're going to wait for it to stop. And this machine has stopped almost exactly on 9 bar. So we know it's in exactly the right place. Now, if you found that when you were doing it, that the machine was actually sitting at 8 bar, there is a way that you can change this. And what you would do, put your blank into the machine. Again, you will turn it on, and then you're going to look at the top, and there's a small screw section at the top, and you could use the back end of a spoon or a flathead screwdriver, and you can adjust the pressure here by taking it clockwise or anti-clockwise. I'll now show you how to make your pressure adjustment. So as I say, portafilter, blank in it, into your machine, and now we're going to turn the coffee on button. You can see the pressure's dropped. It's building and building and building. And let's pretend that it was at 7.5. You're now going to take your flathead screwdriver or the back of a spoon and just very slightly adjust it, and you will be able to see it moving up on here. When you hit the desired pressure, stop. So we're on 9 now, we're happy with that. We take it off. That's it, done. It's important to note that when you're making a pressure adjustment, try and do it slowly. Don't make big movements, because you want to just slowly get it to the point that you're at. Of course, it works both ways, and if the pressure's too high, then you might want to take it anti-clockwise just to drop it down slightly. But as I say, the target is to get it onto 9 bar. I would also suggest that you do it relatively quickly. It doesn't need to be too rushed, but you don't want to leave the machine with the blank on for too long. So it should be a relatively quick adjustment, and then you're ready to go. Now you've got your pressure where it needs to be. We're now going to look at the settings on the rest of the Profitec GO. There's a couple of key things that you can do on here. And one of the great features of the product is that you can control the brew temperature. So out of the box, it's going to be set at 93 degrees, and that's a great temperature to be using to get started. You do have a capability of changing it, as I mentioned. You can also change the steam temperature. You have a setting on when you get a notification when it needs to be cleaned, and you also have eco mode. And eco mode is the period of time at which the machine will go into eco, and that means it's using less energy. Well, first and foremost, if you get your manual and you go to page 26, you'll see all of the details in there of how to control the settings, but I'll show you now. So down here, we've got a plus and a minus sign. We're going to hit them at the same time, and we go to T1, ST, eco, clean, Fahrenheit or Celsius, and back again. And then we use the right hand button to make the amend itself. So I'll show you very quickly what we're going to do on temperature. So we're going to hit both buttons at the same time, T1, and I can change that to 24, 25, 26, back down again, and then I'll just leave it to take it back out of that screen. So you saw it went back to T1 and then it went back to its default. So this time I'm going to hit both buttons at the same time. I'm going to go to minus, and in steam I can change the temperature of the steam, as you can see there. I'm going to take it back to 130, I'm going to let it come out of the menu mode, and we're back to the temperature again. So I'm going to hit 2 buttons, minus to get to where I want to be. This time I'm doing eco. I've decided that I want it to go into eco mode after 60 minutes, and now I'm going to leave it, and it's going to go back to out of the menu setting. You do have to move relatively quickly, because if you leave it for too long, it will automatically come out of the menu mode. So as I say, you want to be hitting the plus and the minus buttons at the same time. Use the minus button to go through the menu, and then you use the plus button to make the adjustment in the one that you've selected. So now your machine's up to temperature, you've got all your settings, and you're ready to go and pull your first shot of espresso. So it's not as complicated as some people think, but I'll give you some quick guides into what you use in terms of the portafilter baskets, and we have some other brewing videos where we get into the depths of dialing in different coffees and so on. But to get started, you're going to have a large portafilter basket and a small portafilter basket. The manufacturer describes this as a single cup for the small one and a double cup for the large one. Typically, we only ever use the larger ones within the machines, and that's because we work on what's called an espresso recipe. So there may be situations where people would classify a single espresso as 1 shot, a double espresso as 2 shots, and you'd be using the larger basket. These days, most specialty coffee roasters and coffee shops don't work in that way. They have a single espresso recipe. So for us, we generally suggest that you're putting in around 15 grams of our darker roast coffee. We want 30 grams of coffee out the other side, and we're typically going to do that in 25 to 30 seconds. The first time you're pulling shots of espresso, we would suggest that you use the larger portafilter basket. So I'm going to take that, we're going to put it straight into our portafilter, and it's done. So as I mentioned, this really comes down to you and how you're working with your grinder. But what you want to try and achieve is you put your espresso ground coffee in, And let's say that we're going to use 15 grams, but again, you may want to play with that, but let's keep it simple to start. So 15 grams in, turn it on, you're looking to try and get 30 grams out in around 25 to 30 seconds. If you've got some scales and you can put them underneath, brilliant. If you haven't, you could use some home scales, pull your shot in 25 seconds, or 25 to 30 seconds, and just see what weight you get out. The other thing I should note, just to keep it simple, is that if you put 15 grams of coffee in and you're looking for 30 grams out, that's approximately 30 milliliters. So if you're just doing it as a rough guide and you haven't got any scales to hand, you'd be putting 15 grams of your coffee in, 30 milliliters out, and you want to achieve that in 25 to 30 seconds. So now you've pulled a shot of espresso, but you want to steam your milk. So as we mentioned earlier, the machine it's set up comes out the box at a temperature of 130 degrees for the steam. It's really important to remember that the Profitec GO is a home machine, and therefore it's working on a single boiler. And that basically means that the boiler is supplying the steam wand, and it's also going through the brew head. So it's going to have a little bit of time to heat up to steam temperature, because as you saw earlier, we'd set it so that it was at 93 degrees for brewing. The steam out the box will be set at 130. So when you flip from coffee to steam, there'll be a small time frame while it heats up. So we're going to do that now. So it's currently turned, or we don't have coffee or steam on. You can see it's sat at 94, and now we're going to move it to steam. Make sure before you do that, that the steam valve is closed. So that means that you want to turn it fully clockwise, and then we're going anti-clockwise to open it up. But while it's heating up, make sure it's closed. So now we're doing steam on, and as you can see, it says 103 down here. And we're going to wait until it reaches 130, and then you know that we're ready to steam. Now the dial's hit 130, and you know that you're ready to steam. And that's really simple. All you're going to do is turn it anti-clockwise, and that's going to open up the steam valve. If you're doing it for the first time, you may find that a little bit of water is going to come out the steam wand at the end, because obviously it's pushing the cold water through the system. So one thing that you can do is ensure that you put a milk pitcher underneath, turn it through, turn it off again, and that's pulled out the water, and we just simply dispose of that water, put our milk in, and now we're in a position where straight to steam when we're steaming. And that's it. Now you've used your steam wand and you want to go back to brewing coffee, or you may want to brew coffee in 10 minutes or so. What we need to do is put it back into coffee mode and take the steam out of the boiler. So it's really easy to do. So as you can see, we've had it in steam. We're going to turn the steam off, and now we're going to remove the portafilter, put it on the side, and I'm going to press the coffee button. When we do this, a large amount of steam is going to come out, and we want to do that. We're releasing the steam from the boiler, because remember that it's a single boiler machine. So both the steam wand and the brewer head are pulling water from a single boiler. So all we're going to do is hit coffee on. You see there's a load of steam coming through. There's a little bit of water in there as well. Let's keep it running and running and running till the steam's out. And then off. And that's pulled enough of the steam out. That means that we put our portafilter back in, and we're ready to go in the future. Just as important as using filtered water when you're using a machine is cleaning. So what we need to do to clean the portafilter and the group head is we take our blank. So remember, our blank's the one that hasn't got any holes in it. We're going to push it into the portafilter. You then need to ensure that you've got some coffee equipment cleaner. So we've got one here. This manufacturer recommends that you use 5 grams of powder in it. So you'll take your coffee powder and you're going to put 5 grams into the blank. We're then going to put it into the machine. Again, you want to check with the coffee cleaning manufacturer what they recommend in terms of run time for cleaning. So in this case, the manufacturer recommends that you do it for 10 seconds on, few seconds off, 10 seconds on, and you repeat that 5 times. So in essence, you're doing the cleaning 5 times 10 seconds. So if you look at now, we've put the portafilter and the blank in. We're now going to turn the coffee button. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and off. And then we're going to repeat that again. So we'll just give it a second to rinse through. And again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and off. And you can hear it flushing back through the machine. So as I mentioned, you want to do that based on the manufacturer's instructions, and that's the powder manufacturer. So in this case, they suggest that you do it for 10 seconds, 5 times. We're now going to take the portafilter out, give the blank a really good clean and ensure that there's none of the coffee powder left in it. And we're now going to put it back in. And this time we're just going to do the same again. So 10 seconds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, off. And we do that 3 times. Really what we're doing here is we're just cleaning through the machine, rinsing through the water to make sure that none of the coffee cleaning powder is in there. So lastly, all you're going to do, take the portafilter and the blank out and put it to the side. What you then want to do is just give the group head a very quick clean. Just remember, it's really hot, so ensure that you're doing it through a cloth. You're not touching it with your hands, that's very important. And also you have a cleaning brush. So take your cleaning brush and give it a really good scrub around the edges and all around the machine to make sure that we're getting all of that coffee out and we've got a nice and clean group head for the next brew that you make. And that's you done. If it's at the end of the day now, simply turn the machine off. I hope you found our video for an introduction to the Profitec GO useful. If you'd like to find out more about cleaning and brewing with the Profitec GO, please follow us on YouTube and you'll see many more videos where we go into a greater level of depth. Thanks.